Okay, so good afternoon. I understand that this is the last session of today, so you are tired. And but as I see, actually the sessions were very important and actually very interesting, and a lot of issues highlighted. So we expect actually to have a good session on very important topic, which is resilient fiscal and economic policies. When we are talking about resilient and fiscal and economic policies, we think of many issues. Yani we are thinking of public finance issues, how to have a kind of efficient and effective public administration or public expenditure, the tax administration system, how to increase the generation of revenues, how to have a kind of diversified base of your economy. So in this case, you will be resilient enough to deal with shocks and to deal with disasters and so on. Also, there are some issues related also to the sustainable economic development as well. How to have a kind of policies that increase economic growth over time and to have this kind of sustainable economic growth. Also, when we are talking about the resilient fiscal and economic policies, we also talking about the monetary policies as well, because monetary policies are very important when we are talking about the currency rate, when we are talking about the inflation rate. So how to have a stable inflation increase, how to have a kind of sound currency and interest rates that support economic growth. So all these kind of issues are very important. Also issues related to trade. And COVID-19 was very important example of what happened. Although there are a lot of partnerships, trade partnerships and a lot of treaties. Okay, there was a severe problem in supply chains, and actually this also affect the visions of the states how to have a kind of independent trade policy in addition to the partnerships with regional and international actors as well. So the monetary policy is important, the trade policy is important, and also what's important related to the resilient fiscal and economic policies is the institutional strength and governance as well. Because when you have good government institutions, when we have effective institutions, so in this case, we will be able to handle in a better way the crisis, and at the same time to be able to have different scenarios and to act under crisis. This is also one of the issues that when we are talking about resilience, we are thinking of it. So how to design policies, how to design measures, okay, to make the government in a way or another more flexible, more adaptable, and at the same time able to deal with different type of crisis. Today in this session we have four papers, and I think the four papers are very good in terms of the topic and in terms of the relevance to the topic title or the topic session. So let me just have my glasses on. Okay, so the first paper is about gender responsiveness budgeting, analytical study and implementation requirements by Rania Muad and Aziza Zimrani. Okay, and oh, you are here already. Okay, you're going to present, right? Okay, good. So this paper is important because when we are talking about the resilient, we are talking about vulnerable groups. I don't want to say actually that women are vulnerable group, but we are talking about like that these they are a group that needs like different type of policies, and you need to empower them over time. And also they are the gender that got affected actually by crisis. When we are talking about a natural disaster, okay, women are more actually exposed compared to men to all these kind of disasters. So the topic is very important and very relevant to the what we are talking about. Budgetary innovation in public sector, challenges and lessons learned. And we have here like Mashari as Al Safran, but I'm not sure whether he or she is here. Ik- You are here? Mashari, okay, why? ندور عليك so you are Mashari, Mr. Mashari from Kuwait, right? Okay, Dr. Mashari. Okay, Dr. Mashari. So he's going to talk about the budgetary innovation in public sector, challenges and lessons learned. And I think also the topic is very important to the topic. Economic complexity in many countries, exploring the joint effect of digitalization and governance. And we have Ms. Noha, right? Dr. Noha, okay, and Dr. Hanan as well. Okay, I think you are from Alexandria University, right? And we have also, like, another, your colleague, I think, from Bana University, as I read, Damanhur University. Okay, as I read. Okay, and we have the role of aid for trade in fostering sustainable development in Egypt, a framework analysis. So actually, I'm going to give to each presenter about from 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, and after this, I'm going to open the door for some Q&A, if this will be possible. So let's start by Rania, okay, to present the paper on gender responsive budgeting, analytical study and implementation requirements. Yes, you can.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you all for this invitation. It's not my first time here in AMEPPA, but it's my first time in Cairo. Uh, I did participate in AMEPPA a few years ago, but just in via Zoom. So I'm so happy and amazed to visit Cairo for the first time. I will introduce myself for the beginning. I'm Dr. Rania Al-Alawi Mouad, professor at University of Abdelmalek Saidi, Tétouan, Morocco. Uh, and I'm going to talk about a very important subject for me and for my co-author also, Dr. Aziza Zmrani from the University of Texas. So we are working about gender policies and especially gender responsive budgeting. That I know you call it gender budgeting here in Egypt, but the institutional term in Morocco is gender responsive budgeting. An analytic study and implementation requirements. So this work, you should to know that this is a work in progress research trying to conduct an empirical study in implementation of GRB. I'm going to use GRB just for the abbreviation of gender responsive budgeting. So GIB, as you may know from panels this morning, there are a lot of difficulties, especially data difficulties about the political policies in general, and especially the gender policies. So we're looking for more statistics and for to conduct us to an empirical study about gender responsive budgeting, especially in Morocco. So this presentation aims to analyze the national voluntarism to establish the GRB as a foundation and essential basis in the budgetary process from development to execution and also evaluation, of course, while knowing that the setting of the GRB and its developments marks a divergence between theory and practice, which raise a lot of questions about the understanding of the role and attribution of each actor involved in the budgetary process at the state level and its relationship with the gender responsive budgeting, which will allow us to answer two key questions. First of all, to what extent are the legislative and institutional instruments for analysis, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation put in place by the Moroccan government are effective and efficient in promoting the gender approach, and what are the essential entry points to ensure a better implementation? So let's begin by a definition of the GRB. So the gender budgeting is also referred to as gender-sensitive budgeting or gender-responsive budgeting. Is an approach to budgeting fiscal authorities can use to address gender inequality and the advancement of women in areas such as education, health, and economic empowerment. It will design also gender budgeting who can improve the efficiency and equity of the overall budget process. So the fiscal authorities at any level of government can assess the needs of men and women, identify key outcomes or goals, plan, allocate, and distribute public funds, and monitor and evaluate achievements. While gender budgeting initiatives around the world have tended to focus on expenditure policies, review policies can also influence gender equality and should therefore be considered part of gender budgeting. So the origins of gender responsive budgeting from Morocco is notable for having the first and most developed gender budgeting initiative in the region, and we are going to know why further. The country started its initiative in 2002 when the Ministry of Finance and Privatization took the first steps with the support of the World Bank by conducting preliminary research on the methodologic feasibility of budgetary accounts for gender and childhood in Morocco. One of the Moroccans' goals was to improve its performance in meeting the Millennium Development Goals, and early effort focused on adapting sectoral budgets for the ministries of education and training, health and agriculture, and rural development to address these goals. So there are also an emphasis on increasing women's public empowerment and collecting sex disaggregated data. So what about the notion of GRB? This is the Moroccan approach. I'm going to talk to you about the Moroccan approach of GRB. So the GRB does not represent the process in the legal terms. Sorry, just... So it's not about the process and the legal sense of establishment of established a budget, but it's a rather comprehensive approach that take into account the specific needs and strategic interests for both men and women in order to promote justice and equity between them. And that's in order to optimize the use of financial resources and effectiveness of public spending according to the gender approach. So integrating gender perspective into all stages of budgeting and planning process by gender-based budget analysis changes based on gender analysis and involving public actors and external stakeholders. In this part, we're going to talk about the context of gender-responsive budgeting in Morocco. So first of all, there are a constitutional context. The GRB was put to the test firstly by the constitutional changes with the constitution of 2011, the Moroccan constitutions, that's guaranteeing a set of rights and obligations in favor of women by providing that men and women enjoy equally civil, political, economic, social, cultural, and environmental rights and freedoms. So aware of the importance of integrating gender mainstreaming, gender budgeting, responsive budgeting into the public management affair, Morocco has provided BSG by GIB, with certain legislative and regulatory means, including Article 75 of the Constitution that allows for the discussion of government strategic development plans and multi-annual programs, which will guarantee a parliamentary debate on the implicit and explicit aspects of issues, integrating the gender aspects and ensure that the fairness of the distribution of budgetary allocation associated with these policies and programs is taken into account in the fight against all form of gender-based discrimination. This is the most important article in the Constitution who talks about gender responsive budgeting, but there are also Article 100, 101, and Article 77. Just because we don't have much time, so I'm not going to talk about all of the other articles. So there are also a new dynamic in favor of the systematic integration of the gender dimension, who was reinforced by the adoption of the organic law relating to Finance Act number 130/13, which sets the milestones for the establishment and generalization of the integration of the gender approach in sectoral budget programming, in particular through Article 39, which provides the consideration of the gender aspects when setting the objective and indicators of the budget program, and also Article 48, who are focusing on the results-based budget report, taking into account the gender aspects. On the institutional level, the concern for the consolidation of the gender perspective in public policies, including budgetary policies, has been well and truly confirmed by the involvement of the Kingdom government and parliaments in several institution approach. The most important of it is through the creation of the Committee for Parity and the Fight Against All Forms of Discrimination, and also created by the Ministry of Finance of a Center for Excellence for Gender Budgeting. So national legislation has worked to institutionalizing the GRB as a systematic element of the budgeting process and public policies development. However, its effectiveness is conditioned by the effectiveness of all the actors and all the stakeholders concerned by the gender approach. Hence, it seems obvious to draw up first a tree structure schematizing and listing the different parties involved, beginning with the preparation and implementation up to monitoring and evaluation for GRB of Morocco. And there is all the actors in Morocco. We can find the government departments, by the authority in charge of women's affairs, the authority in charge of finance, and the other specific spending sectors or program managers, the High Commission for Planning in Parliament, so with the two chambers, with the House of Representatives and the House of Councillors. We can find some constitutional institutions for governance and supreme control, like the Committee for Parity and Fight Against all forms of discrimination, the Court of Accounts. We can find also other consultative institutions like National Human Rights Council, Economic, Social and Environment Council, and other ones. Civil society organizations are very important actors also, by consultation and participation in the democratic mechanism, presentation of legislative motions, presentation of petitions, and so. It's my last slide. Thank you. So after that we do an analytic study about the GRB, it seems obvious and relevant that we should propose some necessary recommendation which can be translated into 7 implementation requirements that are very priority and essential to give new life to the gender-based budget calendar in Morocco. Its institutionalization or even its sustainability in the cycle of public finance management. So the first one, it's generalization of the result-based budgeting logic. I don't think that we have time to talk about all the requirements, but I'm just going to list it for you, because the president of our session just give me just 2 minutes, I guess. So the second requirement is effective commitment of all stakeholders to the requirements of parity. Third, adapt the regulatory framework of the Moroccan administration according to the gender approach standards. Requirements for inclusion of gender-sensitive data in the mapping of public accounts presentations. Establish a monitoring evaluation system. Requirement 6, develop an integrated gender-specific information system. And for the last requirement, we need to institutionalization of coordination between the budget department and the relevant government and constitutional organization. So thank you for your listening, and if you have any question or answer, we'll be more than pleased to give you the response, me and my colleague Aziza. Thank you all. Of course. I teach only in French or Arabic. Yeah, it's my first time. So sorry for my English.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Rania, and thank you, Dr. Aziza. It was excellent paper, okay, discussing actually the conceptual framework of the gender responsiveness budgeting, and at the same time the context of Morocco, the institutional, and at the same time the legal framework, in addition to the what's going on and the requirement to enforce actually GRS in GRB, right? GRB, right, in Morocco. Now let's move to, yeah, and definitely we will keep all comments till the end of this session to actually after, like, the 4 presenters finalized their presentations. So now we can move to the second paper according to the agenda, Economic Complexity in MENA Countries, Exploring the Joint Effect of Digitalization and the Governance. And actually this paper was written by Dr. Noha Nagy. Dr. Noha Nagy al-Baghdadli is an assistant professor of economic at Alexandria University. She is currently the assistant of the vice dean for postgraduate studies and research and the coordinator of the English program and the international cooperation at the Faculty of Economic Studies and Political Science at the Alexandria University. She holds a PhD in economics from University of Bath, United Kingdom, and her bachelor and master's degree in economics from Alexandria University. Her current research interests include international trade, global value chain, climate change, and economic policies. And she has like several research papers. This paper actually is co-authored with Dr. also Okay, Dr. Hanan Abd al-Khaliq. She is an Egyptian economist and assistant professor of economics at the Manhour University, Egypt. She earned her master's and PhD degrees in economics from Alexandria University. So your cohort, it seems. Okay, so her research and interests are in international economics, macroeconomic policy, sustainable development, and inclusive growth, with a deep focus on Middle Eastern and African economics. So the floor is yours, and
Thank you
you
so
have
much.
from
Thank you
10
so
to 15 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So we are here to present our paper, Economic Complexity in MENA Countries, Exploring the Joint Effects of Digitalization and Governance. Okay. I will go briefly through the contents of the paper. So first, what is economic complexity? Economic complexity refers to the country's ability to produce and export a variety of products that only few countries can produce. Okay, so we can say it is a measure of the sophistication and diversity of the knowledge embedded within a country. In 2009, Hidalgo and Husman proposed the Economic Complexity Index to assess the country's productive capabilities based on the assumption that the productive knowledge is reflected in the production of the product that a country can produce. This Economic Complexity Index is based on two measures. First, the ubiquity, which reflects the number of countries engaged in the production and export of a specific product, and diversity, which is the range of the product that a country is able to produce and export. So a complex economy or a sophisticated economy is a one with a lower ubiquity and higher diversity. When we looked at the Economic Complexity Index of the MENA countries, we find disparity between high-income and middle-income countries. Although high-income countries demonstrated significant improvements in their economic complexity ranks, middle-income countries such as Egypt and Morocco continue to lag behind the global mean. So this motivates us to explore more about the economic complexity in the middle-income countries in the MENA. We surveyed the literature and found limited studies on the determinants of economic complexity, in particular in our region. However, most of the studies highlighted the role of the domestic investment, foreign direct investment, natural resources as main determinants of economic complexity. Only recently, very few studies started to explore the effect of digitalization and governance, but in a separate studies. And none of these actually studied the joint or the interaction between these two factors. So our main research question is whether and how the interplay between digitalization and governance affect the economic complexity in the MENA middle-income countries. And we have, of course, some sub-questions. We also investigated the separate effect of each one, the moderating effect of digitalization and the moderating effect of governance, and how this joint effect might differ across the governance indicators. So based on the literature, we formulated our conceptual framework for the main factors that might affect the economic complexity. As mentioned, like the domestic investment and the foreign direct investment, the development of human capital, and of course, our main variables, which are digitalization and governance, and our contribution mainly lie in the joint effect between the two. In our paper, we use the percentage of individuals using the internet as a proxy of digitalization, and we focused on 3 governance indicators: voice and accountability, regulatory quality, and control of corruption. So, digitalization is expected to enhance the effects of governance on economic complexity by encouraging citizen participation, by improving information disclosure, by overcoming underhanded transactions, and the other way around. Better governance is also expected to strengthen the effect of digitalization on economic complexity by improving digital literacy, by ensuring consumer protection, accelerating the investment in ICT infrastructure. Hence, we formulate our research hypothesis as follows. The separate effect of digitalization and governance on economic complexity is positive. The moderating effect of governance is positive. The moderating effect of digitalization is positive. Here are some of the stylized facts of our sample of countries. We choose 7 of the middle-income countries in the MENA. And when we compare the economic complexity index of these countries in 2011 to 2021, we found that only Turkey, Jordan, and Tunisia has a positive scores, while the other countries have a negative score of economic complexity. In 2021, Turkey had the highest score, followed by Tunisia. Regarding the internet usage, all the selected countries witnessed significant progress in internet usage since 2011. The highest in 2021 was Morocco. The lowest was Algeria and Egypt. So still some of these countries face challenges of internet usage, especially in the rural areas. Regarding the governance indicator, this was not the case because most of our selected MENA countries suffer from poor governance indicators reflected by the negative scores. Maybe only Jordan and Tunisia has very small positive scores in some of these indicators. In 2021, the worst in regulatory quality and control of corruption was Iran. The worst in voice accountability was Egypt for the same year. So we have a model, and this model covers the years from 1996 to 2021. Our main dependent variable was the economic complexity index. Our main independent variables were the internet usage and the governance. And we have separate equation for each of the governance indicator. Control of corruption, regulatory quality, and voice accountability. The middle effect actually is our focus, which is an interaction between the 2 factors. We have also added some variables like the Human Development Index, gross capital formation, foreign direct investment as control variables. We first test for the stationarity of the data and for the configuration to make sure that we can apply the panel-Ardel model. We find that most of our variables were stationary at first difference. Pedroni and Westerland test confirmed the presence of configuration. So we estimate our equation with 3 estimators and run a Hussman test to select the most appropriate, which is a pooled mean group estimator. So these are the long-run results of our model. So let me explain these briefly. We first examined the separate effect of each of these factors on economic complexity, and we found that control of corruption and voice and accountability has a positive effect on economic complexity. Regulatory quality was insignificant. Digitalization has a positive effect on economic complexity. Then we examined the long-run effect of the joint or the interaction term, or using one of these as a moderator. So we find the following. We find that the effect of governance on economic complexity is positive, and this effect is the higher the internet usage of individuals, but we have to pass like a threshold of percentage, 15.5% for digitalization or for the internet usage to make effect or to materialize, to enhance the effect of governance on economic complexity. Since 2021, most of these countries actually pass 70% of internet usage, so we are maybe in the back or in the higher internet usage portion. Across the three indicators, voice and accountability was the highest, so it has the strongest effect on economic complexity amplified by digitalization. Then we examined the effect of governance as a moderator for the effect of digitalization on economic complexity, and we find also the following. We find that digitalization has a positive effect on economic complexity, the higher the score of governance. Again, here, across these indicators, voice and accountability act as the strongest moderator for digitalization to have a positive effect on economic complexity. Regarding our control variables, a human development index and gross capital formation was insignificant or negative. Foreign direct investment was positive or insignificant. Regarding quickly the short-run effect, actually it differs from one country to the other, and this is the assumption of our model that assume homogeneity in the long run, but heterogeneity in the short run. So we can conclude that governance has a negative effect in the short run on economic complexity, mainly in Egypt and Morocco. Digitalization in some countries has positive effect and other countries has negative effect. Again, negative effect like Egypt, Jordan, and Algeria. So we can conclude our results that governance and digitalization both affect economic complexity positive in the long run, but we find that governance has a much stronger effect on economic complexity than digitalization. And we can interpret this by the nature of usage of internet in our region, that maybe it focuses more on social interaction and entertainment, not on knowledge creation, innovation, or enhancing productive capacities. Improved governance facilitate the productive integration of digital technologies into the economy. The main role of digitalization in our paper appeared to be as a moderator or facilitator for the effects of governance on economic complexity. And across, as mentioned, across the governance indicator, voice and accountability has the largest impact on economic complexity, either as a direct effect or through moderating digitalization. And maybe this touched some on what we have discussed in the morning session about the role of digitalization and governance. So finally, in order to make the best use of digitalization, policies should focus on enhancing digital literacy, encouraging innovation, and investing in R&D. Efforts also should focus on reducing corruption, enhancing regulatory framework, and fostering inclusive governance practices. Creating and enabling governance environment that foster the integration of digital technologies into productive and knowledge-intensive sectors. Policymakers should integrate digital tools into public administration, such as e-governance platforms, to streamline process and improve the service delivery. So thank you so much. Waiting for you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Noha. I think it's a different type of papers. It's a positive research, econometrics, and definitely, like, it has its own limitation as a result of its quantitative analysis, working on a very qualitative issue. So we will have, more time to discuss this. Now let's go to Dr. Mishari. Dr. Mishari Abdelhamid Abdallah El Safran holds a bachelor degree in engineering and a master's of business administration. His interest is in innovation domain, which is related to public sector. It includes different areas such as open innovation, leadership, digitalization, digital transformation, management information system, artificial intelligence, electronics, and communication and digital technology. He is adjunct assistant professor at electrical department at the Public Authority for Applied Education and Training in Kuwait. And also he is adjunct assistant professor at Department of English and General Studies, Kuwait Technical College, Abu Halifa, Kuwait. So actually this paper is co-authored. So the first author is Dr. Nuhaila Shawqi, and actually the co-author is Dr. Mashari. The floor is yours. Oh, there is a mic there. It's better to go to the results because you have just 4 minutes. So yeah, no time for the definitions, and we are rely on the experiences of the audience already. So yeah, just to go to the results. شكرا جزيلا دكتور بشاري. يعني هو it was a good paper. يعني it's more about يعني literature review rather than being a paper, but I think it's a good effort. Uh, Now I think we go to the last paper for this session, the role of aid for trade in fostering sustainable development in Egypt, a framework analysis. The paper prepared and developed by Dr. Nada Baraka. Nada Baraka, not doctor yet, okay, to be Dr. Naha Baraka, is a Dutch Egyptian public policy researcher with a focus on cross-cultural collaboration and sustainable growth initiatives across Europe and the MENA region. She holds a master's degree in public policy from the American University in Cairo, where she was a Yusuf Jamil Public Policy Fellow. Nada is also the founder of Pain Management, a consultancy based in the Netherlands that promotes cross-cultural collaboration between Europe and the Mediterranean. She is also a member of, I cannot say the organization.
Het Grote Midden-Oosten platform.
She said exactly. Both organizations that promote peace and understanding across the Mediterranean. Nada, the floor is yours.
I think it's on. Oh, it's working. Thank you, Dr. Khaled, for the kind introduction. I'll try to be brief, not to go over the allocated time for the panel. Um, my research paper mainly focuses on the debate about aid versus trade and what the role of aid for trade can help in fostering sustainable development for Egypt. Aid versus trade is a very traditional debate in development. We also highlight Egypt's historical reliance on aid and the recent effort to focus or to boost trade policies instead. Historically, Egypt is a recipient of $648 billion in aid from bilateral donors. This has been documented between the year 2002 and 2022. The challenge that is presented is that it's very difficult to balance traditional aid while having a shift towards trade policies that can ensure sustainable development. The focus of my paper is how aid for trade can actually enhance Egypt's long-term economic growth. My main research question is how does aid for trade foster sustainable development in Egypt? And we also have 3 sub-questions. How has aid actually impacted Egypt's social and economic sectors? What role has trade played in improving Egypt's GDP and inclusive growth? And can a combined aid and trade strategy foster long-term development? I'll try not to go into too much detail with definitions because I believe that everyone in the room is aware about what we mean when we say aid and what we mean when we say trade. So basically, aid comes in handy for short-term assistance, usually during humanitarian crises. And trade is basically the exchange of goods and services driven by exports and trade agreements, foreign trade investments, things like that. Aid for trade is not a new concept. It's a concept that's been developed by the World Trade Organization in 2005. It's also been incorporated in the Sustainable Development Goal 8A. It aims to build trade capacity and infrastructure through foreign aid, usually to low-income countries. The methodology I took was primarily using secondary data. There isn't a lot of primary data that is available about aid for trade programs and their effectiveness. I used the thematic analysis of the reports and studies that are already available in the literature. I also focused on how aid for trade helps in infrastructural development, market access, and employment generation. So the findings that are particular to Egypt, because this is our context, initiatives like the USAID trade. Oh, sorry, I went to the trade part first. The impact of aid first in Egypt. There are several projects that were helped through aid receiving to Egypt. So major projects that we know of, like the new Suez Canal, which costed $8.2 billion, and the Benban Solar Park, which costed $1.13 billion. Those were funded by foreign aid, helping Egypt's trade and green energy sectors. Of course, aid also comes in handy for social welfare, like the Takaful and Karama programs, which was funded by $900 million from the World Bank. It has supported 3.1 million households so far and allegedly reduced poverty by 12%. We also talk about the impact of trade, particularly the aid for trade programs. So Egypt is already a recipient of support to aid for trade programs. For example, there's the USAID Trade Reform Program, which is accounted for $36.3 million. That's from the year 2021 to the year 2026. There's also the Egyptian American Enterprise Fund, which is $300 million that support 200,000 small and medium enterprises and created 15,000 jobs. The challenges, of course, with that is there's still a lot of impact that comes from the informal sector and delays in trade facilitation and implementation. Maybe I'll jump to the policy recommendations because we don't have a lot of time, and also to leave room for questions. So the policy recommendations have to do with strengthening trade infrastructure. So to be able to properly utilize aid for trade programs, there needs to be strengthening of trade infrastructure. That includes, of course, roads, ports, urban and rural networks. To focus also on capacity building, so focus on youth, women, and marginalized groups. To focus on sustainable trade, to prioritize green investments, to diversify trade partnerships, so to go beyond the EU and America and engage with African and Asian markets. And lastly, to improve governance, which is to improve transparency, rule of law, and anti-corruption measures. Yeah, so basically my conclusion is that aid helps in short-term crises, but sustainable growth requires trade. Aid for trade provides a pathway for long-term development by integrating social welfare with economic progress and to focus on the future for inclusivity, transparency, and sustainability. Thank you.
So thank you very much. يعني the paper is tackling a good يعني point and a good issue, uh, which is like the versus trade. But there is no specific conclusion يعني whether it's aid or trade. But يعني let us open the door for discussion. يعني I will take advantage of being the chair, and I have like one comment for each of these four papers. So regarding the first one, يعني Dr. Rania and uh, Dr. Aziza. So actually, no, I have a question. What was the impact of introducing the gender responsiveness budgeting on the budgeting system in Morocco in general? So I am not sure whether the introduction of this technique leads to change or major change in the allocation to specific programs, to which extent we will be able to assess the efficiency and the effectiveness, whether it was good, it was bad, is there a pre and post kind of analysis? Because at the end of the day, yes, it's good and we understand like the technique, but also we need to assess, especially it's a research paper, okay, what would be like the impact of this introduction? Or maybe you can say it's just in introduction and so far there is no crystallized any kind of effect. So this is my question to you. Your question to you, Dr. It's about like the يعني I expect to have like a section on your paper on the limitation of this study, because first of all, like the size of the sample is not that big, okay, and I found that you generalized a lot, okay, in terms, and you was very يعني trusted and very so it was very important to highlight this kind of limitation. Also, you have a lot of limitation related to the measurement itself, okay, because for economic complexity itself, like it's questionable. Even the measures of the world governance indicators, there is a lot of issues and debate among scholars about the accuracy of measuring the terms and concepts. Also, you try to get the joint effect of governance and digitalization, and we know that digitalization sometimes it's part of governance, and at the same time governance also or no digitalization need governance, and this is why we are talking now about how to governance the digitalization process. So I think this is my recommendation, and I want to hear from you about the risk. Doctor. Okay, so the paper is fine, as I told you, it's a literature review. But my question, first question, why you worked on Morocco, not Kuwait? Yani you are from Kuwait, okay, and you spent all of your time in Kuwait, and I think you are more acquainted to the system in Kuwait rather than Morocco. So this is a question. The other issue is actually more about uh, your results or the findings of the paper was very generic, okay. You start that your main question is about the context of Morocco, but actually your findings is not about Morocco. It's about actually how it's good to go from the traditional budgeting process to program based or output based or objective based budgeting. So I need if you have answer for this for Nada. Okay, it's paper, it's a good paper, but again, I find it very generic in a way. And my question, why you didn't focus on specific sectors? Because actually, when we talk about aid for trade in general, so we will not be identify what are the sector where aid is better than trade, and what are the sector when trade is better than aid. And it was good actually to have information about the maybe sector like industrial sector, different subsectors in industry, services, and so on, to enrich your findings, and at the same time to increase also the policy implication. Because now it's good, but we cannot actually rely on it to design specific policies. So I think maybe in the future or in recent or other version of this is to focus more on one of the sectors. So this is my question, and let us open the door for discussion. Sure, just introduce yourself and go ahead.
Public administration here at the university also. So my question is for Dr. Mishari. What do you mean by نجاعة? I don't understand. Sorry. Because my master is in English, not in Arabic. Efficiency. Yes, thank you for that.
Dr. Sally?
Okay. Thank you for all the speakers in this panel. I have a question for oh, sorry. Okay. Sally Abdelmaiz, an assistant professor of public financial management and public administration and director of the sustainability office at the School of Economics of Political Science at Cairo University. So my question is for Dr. Rania and for Dr. Aziza. So in addition to what Dr. Khaled has said about that we wanted to see more of how this is changing the process and the impact of the process of gender budgeting in Morocco. If this is also a new reform, we would like to hear your insights about the challenges of the transformation to gender or to applying gender responsive budgeting, especially that usually these types of budget that involve all the actors in the budget process. So you're expecting all institutions within the public sector to comply with budget responsiveness uh, procedures throughout the entire budget process. So usually these kinds of reforms face challenges at the beginning as you're building capacity, as you're trying to transform the budget process, as you're building requirements into the system. So what were the challenges and what would be your policy recommendations as to how to deal with these challenges? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment, question? No? Yes, go ahead. Introduce yourself first.
My name is Farah Al-Masri. I work at the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development and International Cooperation. So I had first a question for the gender-based budgeting. Maybe if you have any like impact of what has been implemented in terms of policies, did it yield any results yet? I know it started in 2002, so maybe if you have any insights on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Aziza? Definitely. You know, you want to answer. Okay, but before actually giving you this, any other comments? Sure.
So, thank you. I'm Aziza Zamrani from University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, and University Mohammed V from Morocco. So I'm wearing two hats. All presentation was just great, of course, including ours. Humility aside, this is the American style. What can I do? The digitalization or the access to internet, actually, and you said Morocco is really on the positive side. I didn't see the literacy. I mean, I agree with Dr. About the limitation. Because if you see what is going on in Morocco, I've been living in Morocco off and on for the last 3 years. So I can tell I am back to Morocco. And so is the access to internet. And the user, it's not just the access, it's the user of internet need to be interpreted with caution. Because I have some people, like some family members and even entourage, the users, the high users of internet is not by educated people. It's really with the flow of the social media and everything. So that should be maybe the literacy rates should be another variable to be included. Maybe that's just a comment. Thank you. And whenever ready, I can answer the question.
Sure,
to her.
definitely. But if she presents, she has to defend herself. Okay. Okay. Any other question, comment? Okay, so given this, so we'll start give every participant 5 minutes. So we'll start with Nada.
Thank you, Dr. Khaled, for your comment. Yeah, it's very valid that there should be a focus on a particular sector. But as I mentioned, the Aid for Trade program, even though Egypt is a participant and there's a lot of efforts and funding going through the program, there isn't a lot of available data yet, which is why my paper is basically a framework analysis about how can Aid for Trade actually foster sustainable development for Egypt. Hopefully in the future there is more emphasis on how we can benefit from such a program. Also, I can briefly mention my motivation, let's say, behind doing such a paper. I'm very interested in the idea of decolonizing aid, but not to say that all aid is bad, let's stop it, let's work like low-income countries.
Thank you. شكرا. كانت لديه الفكرة لتطبيقها ودراستها في مملكة المغرب، فاقترحت علي، وأنا طبعا تعرفت على دكتورة نهيلة شوقي في مؤتمر، أحد المؤتمرات، وهذا الهدف من مشاركات احنا باحثين وكدكتوراه. نعم مغربية، اي نعم. فعشان كذي احنا بارت من المغرب، هي مغربية، وطبعا رجعنا في الريسيرش الدراسات السابقة على 25 مصدر، 25 مصدر تقريبا، دستور المغرب، ورجعنا على دراسات 22 منها عربي وخمسه انجليزي وفرنسي. هذه فيها الدراسه، وانا كانت مشاركتي يعني في الانوفيشن از انوفيشن، انه هو innovation management يعتمد على how you innovate with a process or product or services. هذه كانت الإضافة اللي فتحنا فيها في مجال لتطوير الميزانية، اللي هو الابتكار الميزانياتي، حيث أن عندهم الإصلاحات من 2000، من سنة 2001 بدأوا عندهم الإصلاحات الميزانيات في المملكة المغربية. اوكي.
Thanks so much, Professor Dr. Khalid. Of course, yeah, all your comments is correct. I mean, as you mentioned, it is a positive research, so we are working with data. So regarding the sample, we choose the middle income countries in the MENA. So we exclude only few countries like Lebanon, Libya, or Iraq because of data availability. So yeah, this is because so it's 7, so we exclude only few countries. Regarding the measures, I agree again with Professor, because what we take for digitalization is the internet usage, which maybe not so reflected about translation, the digitalization into innovation or a complexity. But again, working with data sometimes, especially we want to investigate or to examine the long run effects. So long run effect, maybe we need long time series data. So this was available, but so it is only internet usage. But we found that it is a very small effect of digitalization measured by internet usage on economic complexity, which we cannot interpret as the nature of usage or people who use the internet. So maybe they just browsing social, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So it's not a knowledge creation tool so far. Yeah. And regarding literacy, I mean, we take another measure, which is Human Development Index, which has included the mean years of schooling. So it somehow reflect this part. Um, yeah. Regarding, yeah, fine. Yeah. Yeah, the governance indicator, again, maybe for the time series, we couldn't find another indicators with like from 1996, so this is why we choose this. Regarding the joint effect, yes, digitalization and governance are interacting together, but maybe we want to examine or to know which is stronger. Is there like a threshold of any values above which this can materialize, as we did in our paper? So we find that we need high percentage, as given this is our measure, we need high percentage of internet usage in order to governance to have an effect on economic complexity. So we were interested in these quantification measures. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Rania and Dr. Aziza.
Excuse, we would like to apologize. It's my responsibility, but as Dr. Rania mentioned, is the problem of data collection. We know that we implemented, we talk about gender responsive budgeting in 2002, but that's the constitution, and then we have the you know, and the different law and different ordinance. So we are still working on that, and I'm inviting you. So this is an invitation to join us in the US, in DC, in 2025 in April, where we are presenting the result. So that's an invitation, an open invitation.
The Aziza said, we're still working about the conclusions of our paper, and we will give you the results in April in DC, inshallah. And I'm going to ask a question about the difficulties. Is that right? So there's a lot of resilience for all the different stakeholders about the implementation of gender the gender budgeting, and also lack of data. The indicators are just some they're not impact indicators, they're just some what we call activity indicators only, and that's a real problem. There are no such like an integrated information system where we're gonna find all the public sectors, public policies talking about the gender policies, or they are not a database that will be integrated of all the information from all the stakeholders, from all the sectors in the state of Morocco, and that's one of the several challenges from our country. Thank you.
Thank you. So the invitation is accepted, and definitely as a chair, I have to verify myself. Yani, so this is why I will go and will let you know, okay, what was the finding. So thank you very much for your participation, and looking forward actually seeing you tomorrow morning. I understand that this is second day, but actually your attendance will be appreciated. We will start tomorrow at 9:30, okay, and we will do our best actually to be like, as fast as possible. Thank you very much. Before giving best, I would like to give the certificates to the participants. So, Miss Hanan, صورة مع كل حد انت دكتور مشاري. دكتور نهى. دكتور نهيلة ما جاتش انت اديها لها بقى. تتصور مكانها؟ دكتور رانيا. انتوا مع بعض بقى عشان انا المفروض بس ناخد كتب شكرا لحضراتكم، ميرسي. نعم. جروب هيك حركات انت اتفضل.